Negotiations are stalling in the Senate as lawmakers try to strike a deal on a police reform bill. The House passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act in March, and it's now being debated in the Senate. But there's disagreement on two key provisions. The first involves qualified immunity, which shields officers from civil lawsuits over constitutional violations. The second is over prosecuting police misconduct. For more, let's bring in President and CEO of the NAACP, Derrick Johnson. Derrick, good to have you back on the show. You've personally been involved meeting with lawmakers to talk about police reform. What are your thoughts on where negotiations on this bill currently stand?
Well, I am glad that there is a table where members of both the House and the Senate across political lines are actually sitting down, working to hash out details. And it is to be expected there will be some stalling, but the fact that they are still there working hard to ensure communities are safe and we establish true confidence in law enforcement agencies across the country, I think is absolutely important.
Qualified immunity is something you've said needs to be addressed in police reform legislation. How do you think modifying or eliminating that will address accountability in law enforcement?
Well, accountability is of the highest priority for the NAACP. Individuals who have been sworn to uphold and protect the law and protect citizens should not be held above the law in a way in which bad cops can actually commit harm to individuals and communities. For decades, African Americans have complained about police brutality, officers who are bad apples, not operating in good faith, and in fact, causing harm and death. And so if that happens, people should be held accountable. It should not be allowed to hide behind qualified immunity. And for that matter, anything, we all should have to live up to a standard that we protect one another, we care for one another, but more importantly, we're not causing harm to each other.
Derrick, are you worried that during these negotiations, essential parts of the spirit of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act might be watered down? What are some of the things that you think simply have to be included in this legislation?
Well, law enforcement officers must be held accountable. We have to create a publicly facing registry of police misconduct so individuals who commit harm are not terminated or relieved from one law enforcement agency and go to the neighboring district. If we would have had this in place before, Tamir Rice would still be alive, a 12-year-old child simply playing in a park with friends, cops, and robbers. That police officer was terminated from a neighboring agency only to be rehired with Cleveland. That should not be the case. And so we have to have a standard across the board with all 18,000 law enforcement agencies that people could expect to that officers uphold. That's really important. I want to be safe when I'm driving. I want my kids to be safe when they're out in public, as any other parent across the country.
Derrick, I have one more question for you. I want to ask you about a meeting that you had earlier this week with Senator Joe Manchin over voting rights. This was after the senator said that he would oppose the For the People Act, which aimed to strengthen federal voting rights in the wake of legislation passed by state legislatures that disproportionately affect people of color. So what can you tell us about that conversation?
Well, one of the things I quickly recognize is that Senator Manchin is at a crossroad. He wants to advance access to voting, similar to what he did when he was Secretary of State of West Virginia, and creating early voting and other things to update the system of elections for West Virginians. We're simply asking him to do the same thing. But it's difficult to do when he would allow a procedural rule that was used by segregationists for many years to impede progress, particularly progress around civil and voting rights during the 40s, 50s, and 60s, to supersede the substance of protecting our democracy and providing access to voters to fully engage and participate. So we will continue to push him and other members of the Senate across political lines because this is not a partisan issue. This is an issue of access to voting and the guarantee under our Constitution that all citizens should be allowed to fully engage. We must protect our democracy, and we can only do that if we protect the rights of voters to fully participate.
Derrick Johnson, thank you.
Thank you.